What's up guys, Moniz here and welcome to my Pixel 2 and Pixel 2 XL review. It's been 60 days. I wanted to wait a little bit longer just because of the bugs and the complaints about the display so that I can give you guys a proper review. So let's start off with the design. You got the smaller 5-inch Pixel 2 and then you have the bigger Pixel 2 XL at 6 inches. Both phones are very simple looking with the glass top, which I think gives it some nice character. It has a very rough texture on the back, making it comfortable to hold in your hand so it doesn't slip out. Now, my only gripe with the bigger version is that I find it to be a little bit too big. I think LG is the company who actually produced this phone, could have done a better job of reducing the bezels. For example, I have here the Huawei Mate 10 Pro, which is also 6 inches, but they still managed to make the display slightly less wide and not nearly as tall. So when I'm using this on a daily basis, it just feels a lot more comfortable to use. Now again, this is very subjective and this is just the way I feel when I use the larger model. But the good news is it does have dual speakers on the front and they sound fantastic, especially on the smaller one. I find the smaller one to be slightly better. Both phones support water resistance, which is great. Unfortunately, there's still no micro SD card slot, and unfortunately, there is no wireless charging. Now, one thing Google has improved with the hardware this year is the fact that they increased the speed of the fingerprint sensor on the back. This is definitely one of the fastest fingerprint scanners that I've ever used on a smartphone. And on top of that, they have that cool feature that lets you swipe on it to bring down the notification menu. It's the little things that sometimes make the experience even better. But one big disappointment is the fact that there's no more 3.5mm headphone jack. This is something that last year Google said they'd love to keep with their smartphones. Now, the adapter that comes in the box does have a DAC included, so the sound quality will be a little bit better than a phone with just a regular headphone jack and an inferior DAC, but it just seems like Google's going back on their word. So one big area that both of these phones differ is the display technology. The smaller one is produced and manufactured by HTC, and they source their displays from Samsung, so it obviously has a better color representation. The bigger Pixel 2 XL was made by LG, and it uses their own in-house P-OLED technology. Now for them, this is a very new territory, so the display quality on the bigger model is not as good as the smaller one. Based on my results of using both of these phones, I found the smaller one has more of a warmer tone, and the bigger one to be a little bit more cold. Also, if you tilt the phones to the side like this, the blue shift on the bigger model is significantly more than what you'd get on the smaller one. Now there's been a lot of reports that the Pixel 2 XL has the worst display on the market, that you shouldn't buy it because of this blue tint, but honestly it's been fine. I've been using this thing mostly over the smaller Pixel 2 and I haven't been upset with it. Yes, sometimes when you tilt the phone, the display gets really blue, but this is pretty common standard stuff on most AMOLED screens. Even the iPhone 10, for example, does it. Obviously not as much, but it still does it. Most people who buy this phone, the regular consumer, is not gonna say anything about it. They're just gonna buy it, they're gonna use it, and they're gonna be happy with it. But people like us, people like me who are tech enthusiasts, we like to complain about things because we're privileged. This is a first world problem, and for us, it will always be a problem because we look at these little things and we like to report it. Before I jump into the performance, let's just quickly go over the software. Android 8.0, which is the latest version of Android, as it should be since these are Google products, the experience has been exceptional. Like, the notification system is better than before. I love how smooth and fluid the phone has become. I also love the battery life. Android 8.0 just does a much better job managing battery life in the background compared to previous versions. I also love the little features Google has installed with their Pixel lineup, like the fact that they have a new service called Now Playing. Whenever a song plays in the room, it will tell you the song without you having to do anything. So think of this as Shazam, but on steroids. Then there's the squeeze functionality, something that I used to kind of make fun of on the HTC lineup. I just thought it was a gimmicky feature and not very useful. But on the Pixel phones, it makes a lot of sense because it brings up the Google Assistant and it saves you from saying, "Hey Google." I just set off all of your phones and I'm not even sorry. So this brings me to performance. If I'm talking about the software experience being smooth, then obviously some of that has to do with what's inside the phone. Just like every other flagship device, it's running a Snapdragon 835. This one has 4 gigabytes of RAM. And because Google has taken the hardware and optimized it with their own software, you're probably gonna get one of the smoothest Android experiences than you would compared to any other smartphone on the market. So here's the interesting thing. Inside of here is a separate piece of hardware, a CPU that's dedicated for the camera. It's not on right now. Google's calling it the Pixel Visual Core. Once it's turned on, it will make HDR plus photos even better than they are now, which is absolutely insane because the camera on the Pixel is probably the best on the market. But what's really cool about it is the fact that third-party developers can tap into it to improve the photo services in their applications. So this brings me to the camera, and let's be honest, this is why you buy a flagship phone. You want to spend the $1,000, $800 on a phone that takes the best pictures. It's what separates it from the mid-range and below. And if you want the best camera, you're going to be looking at the Pixel 2 or the Pixel 2 XL. Both of these phones have a 12 megapixel sensor on the back with an aperture of f1.8, so you're going to get some really good low light photos. And once that Pixel Visual Core is turned on, those low light photos are going to look even better. It has all those features like portrait mode, so you get that great blurred background, and Google is able to do this without having a second lens on the back of your phone. Now, the only thing I don't like about this camera is probably the front-facing camera, which, by the way, you can also do portrait mode on. I just find the front-facing camera to be a little bit too sharp, but it makes the subject look older than they really are. Or maybe I'm just getting old in general. So finally, this brings me to battery life. And battery life has been fantastic on either device. Obviously, on the smaller Pixel 2, you're not going to get as good battery life as the bigger one. I mean, inside of there is only a 2700 milliamp battery, but I was still getting about 4 hours of use before needing to plug in. And that takes me through the entire day. For example, my buddy Ash, who also has this phone, he gets about 4.5 to 5 hours of use before having to plug in. So pretty good for a smaller device. Next up is the Pixel 2 XL, much bigger battery. Obviously, you're gonna get better battery life. I was getting about 6 hours of use before plugging in. This is better than the iPhone 8 Plus, and it's able to take me to about a day and a half before I need to charge the smartphone. So here's the bottom line. The Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL are fantastic smartphones. Sure, they had some bumps and hiccups when they were first released with software issues, bad displays, and so on and so forth. But a lot of those issues have been corrected, and some of those issues have been completely blown out of proportion. I personally feel these two phones offer the best Google experience or Android experience you can get on the market right now. They pretty much have everything you want in a smartphone. Good battery life, amazing software experience, the best camera you can buy, and pretty good displays. If those features are very important to you, especially the camera, then this is the phone to buy. Now, of course, if hardware features like the little things like wireless charging, having the best display on the market, there's other phones that might be more of an interest to you. But overall, I think these two do a very good job of providing the complete package. So that wraps up my review of the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL. They're great smartphones. If you like the video, smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next video.